Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Brace yourself, boys and girls, because Adult Swim now has a capital A on it. And you know, if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals, and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. If you are subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, we're on the Letterboxd, we're on the TikTok, and I think we're even on the Tumblr for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. This one's going to be a fun one, boys and girls, because guess what? We are diving into the brand new Adult Swim show that is born and bred in Canada itself. It is called Psi Cops. Psi Cops, excuse me. It just had its premiere, and it's a new animated comedy series that follows the unjustifiably bold and unnecessarily creative coworker friends forever, Kydd and Felixx, who are top detectives at the paranormal agency Psi Cops, crammed into a shady office complex and helmed by a true believer, the one and only Chief Beef. This ragtag group of experts head out into the field as they investigate alleged sightings of aliens, ghosts, demons, and so much more other hocus-pocus nonsense. Their intention is to solve mysteries and supernatural crimes by using their overly competent incompetence. It is a hell of a lot of fun, and it is Adult Swim Canada's first original animated series that is just, well, it's a lot of fun. It's Canadian, it's homegrown. I love it. It's playing on Adult Swim Canada and Stack TV now and Advance, and it had its premiere. We did this interview a little while ago, but we had the pleasure of sitting down with the writer, directors, creators of the show, Bart Batchelor and Nielsen, to ask about the origins of it all and just diving into it and really sort of exploring this world and just sort of the stress of, you know, animating a show by yourself, which, I mean, they kind of basically did. I mean, these guys kind of pulled a South Park in just how they did it, very sort of DIY, very on their own with their team. And the results are just absolutely fantastic. But like I said, go check out Psi Cops, which is airing on Adult Swim Canada and also available on demand on Stack TV. But first, enjoy our talk with Bart and Chris, because between you and me, it's a darn good one. All right, well, just to kick it off, like, officially, just obviously congrats on the show, guys, man. It is absolutely fucking hilarious, and just thank you so much for the time today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having us on. It's been like a whirlwind getting to talk to people about it, but it's like, it's funny you work on this thing in like a black box for like 3 years, Bart. Is that what it was? And now we can unleash it on people, and it's been really positive feedback so far. So I really appreciate that.
So I guess the first question is, like, walk me through the early stages of locking yourselves in a dark room and sort of getting this ball rolling.
Oh man, it is. Those early stages go back something like 6 or 7 years right now. It takes a long time to get a Canadian adult cartoon made. But it started. Our origins are on YouTube. A lot of our comedy we built out there. We have a couple shows on there. And eventually some of those shows started catching the attention of some bigger names, primarily David Alpert, who's the producer of The Walking Dead over at Skybound. He kind of, with one of our shows, World Doctors, he really loved. And this is about 7 years ago. And he said, like, can we do something that lives in the world at Skybound? Because Skybound produces lots of genre stuff. we pitched him a bunch of shows. One of them was, hey, what about a show about two paranormal investigators who are absolute morons? And he loved it. And so we were kind of off to the races. We together, we built a demo and a pitch package, and then we hit everybody.
Off to the races, but like in slow motion. So it's like off to the races. We make a demo, we go out and we try to sell it for 4 years until we got picked up. We got a call from Chorus saying, hey, remember that show you guys pitched us? Let's do it. And we're like, okay, awesome. Long time coming.
If X-Files were led by a bunch of frat boys, there you go. That's
That is not far off.
Not at all.
Actually, when we pitch, we always say it's X-Files, but Mulder and Scully are replaced with morons. It goes over very well.
No, I mean, I loved just, I guess, the patter of the comedy and the back and forth. And I mean, it felt very rapid fire. And I mean, what for you, both of you, how important was it to make these guys just really be almost, I mean, I don't want to say, have like fluid dialogue, but it was almost like dialogue of diarrhea as they go back sort of back and forth with one another. It's so funny.
They are definitely spitting diarrhia at each other out of their mouths. Back and forth.
I love to hear that.
Diarrhea.
That's always been a hallmark of our stuff. I can't think of anything that we intentionally made things slow, anything in our entire career. But and we're constantly trying to kind of one up it. So it's a bit of a sport with us. Like, how can we cram more in? I think the opening shot of the first episode that you saw is the longest shot in the whole show that there's no dialogue in, and was that like 2 seconds? Everything else is jam-packed.
No, I mean, I've got to imagine just you're working on this, you're slaving on it, then you sell it, and then obviously the news that it's going to hit Adult Swim Canada as the first sort of Canadian quote unquote original, that's got to be a badge of honor for you guys, just given sort of the nature and the sort of the pacing of the show. And then, I mean, obviously the stuff that Adult Swim has produced has, created this sort of iconic legacy of hilarity. Now you guys get to be a part of that. Like, what was that sort of initial reaction?
Oh man. Going deeper into that, Chris and I have been huge Adult Swim fans from like the origin with Space Ghost and Aqua Teen Hunger Force. For us, it's a great way of describing it. The way you describe it, like, it's iconographic what they've created. They really carved out adult animation in its own space. So for us to get on the Adult Swim Canada thing, we lost our minds. We're bricking it.
100%. And I think our style of comedy obviously is inspired by, but also just fits really into their genre, which is, oddly enough, I'd say, like Adult Swim, it's counter genre everything. There's not one single voice you can point to,
right?
But it's all got kind of like a unique, I guess it's unified in that it's all different. And I think our show fits really well into that. And then, so like being the first Canadian Adult Swim original was just like huge. I mean, like, I don't even think that's really sunk in yet. Like, it's kind of cool to be able to say that.
No, I mean, I gotta ask, because I mean, obviously other Adult Swim shows have gone on to make features and make sort of expanded things, but initially Adult Swim in the sort of their format is pretty, condensed. It's more of a short form. Like, do you guys see this universe expanding to, I don't want to say feature, but maybe more longer form stuff?
It's funny, we are constantly coming up with spin-offs. There's 24 episodes in this, and almost every episode, because it's Monster of the Week, so every episode you're introducing a new monster, and usually a crew that revolves around it. So you bring in all these voice actors, all these comedians. They breathe big life into the characters you've developed, and then those characters we get really into. We have this, like, one of them is this old man who dies and he becomes a ghost. And then this cop named Jakes who hates the Psi Cops because he hates all this paranormal crap. But we have this whole spin-off idea where those two partner up, like a cop and a ghost, to go fight crime. Like, just
be a great show.
Yeah. As for long form, we haven't really thought about that with this series yet, though. We've been thinking of spin-offs, other cartoons, maybe cartoons that are focused on YouTube and stuff like that. But that would be fun as hell.
It would be very fun. What do you think? 45 minutes max, a feature length for World Doctors?
Because, I mean, there's something about this, man, that, I mean, while obviously the X-Files comparisons are obvious, it kind of honors the spirit of Scooby-Doo as well. And I mean, like, for you guys, when you're putting together stuff like this, do you try to draw from other influences, or are you really just trying to be as like gonzo as humanly possible?
All of the above, definitely.
Absolutely, but at the core, one of the core comedy rules of Psi Cops is the paranormal's not funny. Kydd and Felixx make it funny. So when we pick paranormal stories, we try to pick like, I don't want to see the cliche, but the tropes. So we're really looking at like, so if we're going to use vampires, we're really looking at like, okay, what are the quintessential vampire setups that we're used to? Is it
the archetypes, right? The archetypes. So we don't need to teach the audience what a vampire is. We don't have time for that. So it's like, here's a vampire. You know it. You know what it is already.
Yeah. So absolutely, we're pulling, especially from the genre of the supernatural, like everything and anything we're pulling. And then our directors and our board artists and stuff like that, they're also like huge genre nerds. So they're injecting their style and their influences in there too. So yeah, absolutely.
What is it about like the monsters and sort of the genre that allows for the beats to let the comedy out? Because I mean, if you put these two characters in like a Law and Order type procedural, it's not going to work.
Funny you say that. I think there's a courtroom scene that's probably one of the funniest things we've ever written that happens in one of the episodes.
Can't wait. All right.
So yeah, I think we kind of have this two-man shtick we've been doing for a long time, and often enough, I mean, like Psi Cops is the opposite because it's a big, beautiful, exciting world of supernatural and stuff. But often enough with our stuff, the more boring the background, the more exciting the characters could be. Like if it's something that's super boring and procedural, we could be bigger and over the top. And that's kind of why it goes hand in hand with our rule about like not making the supernatural funny. It's the standards. It's kind of like, what this is, so these characters can come in and botch the investigation, or more likely just completely ignore it and do their own thing and enjoy themselves rather than do their jobs properly.
No, I mean, I've got to ask, like, is this one of those things where you're animating the show and then people are putting on the voice, or are you guys animating to the voice work from your actors? Because I mean, it always tends to go either one way or the other.
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, we've experimented with like lots of different models like that in the past, or like even like trying to do like live animation. But Psi Cops in particular is very much record, and if it's not like, if the radio play, just the voices alone aren't funny, we go back and we make that as condensed as funny as possible. Then we do the animatic, which is drawings on top of that, before we even start animating, because animation can be quite a time-consuming process, and you don't want to overdo it too much or like have to go back and reanimate scenes.
For sure. Now, I mean, I'm curious from both your perspectives, because I mean, obviously, especially in the past like 10, 15 years, the demand for content sort of in all its forms is like all across the board. People just want to watch as much as they humanly possibly can. And it's places like Adult Swim and I mean, that have allowed for especially animated comedy to sort of have more of a home and more of an acceptance. Because I mean, up until then, other than Mickey on the Steamboat, the short animated comedy thing was never really kind of an acceptable thing. Why do you think we've evolved to this place where we want sort of foul-mouthed animation?
I've thought about that quite a bit, like the hallmarks of animation. And I guess what it is like it's almost like our culture allows you to be immature a lot longer than it used to. And I think for a lot of people, you're raised watching kids' cartoons, and then you grow up and you're like, I'm still immature. I still want to watch cartoons. But yes, Care Bears is not going to be the content you're looking for when you're 35. And I think the kind of
maybe it is.
Maybe it is. But the acceptance of immaturity, and maybe immaturity is a bold word to be using there, but I think people are allowed to like be silly and have a playfulness and a childlike enjoy even in their 40s, 50s, 60s nowadays. So I think it's a lot easier to get away with making adult animation.
And what's funny, it always has been niche, and I think it still in a way is kind of niche, but it had an audience there the whole time. There was Spike and Mike's film festival, or like there was shorts like SNL would do Ace and Gary, right. Like there's always sort of like a little window for this stuff. And it wasn't until like Adult Swim came along and needed to fill in their late night hours with like basically recycled animation, kicked it off. And then it kind of came up with the internet too. Like there was a site called Newgrounds, which was all kind of like underground weirdo online animation. And I think it just kind of, it became a self-propagating machine. Like I love that so much, I want more of it. And Adult Swim was like the perfect sort of like touchstone for that.
Now I'm curious for both of you, when was sort of that self-realizing moment that, wait a minute, I can be a creative artist, I can possibly monetize this and still be immature at the same time? Because I mean, again, I think that's kind of the big thing, because you need to be able to embrace the spirit of these shows in order to make them. If you're doing this with sort of like a dead serious face and you're talking about your art, it's gonna be a little disingenuous. You have to be able to laugh at it.
Yeah,
it's really true. It's kind of funny. I know it's a bit off, but it's related to it. When Chris and I first started writing comedy, and specifically we started using improv, it's maybe apparent part of that kind of diarrhea back and forth is the fact that we use a lot of improv. And for us to get in the mental space, we used to drink a lot to start. Like we would get drunk and we would improv. Like on a Friday night, we'd go meet up, we'd drink 5-6 beer and then get on the microphone. And the weirdest thing over time, like obviously when you're doing this professional and you have to start writing at 10 in the morning, right? They'll say you can't drink every time you're writing. So we had to learn to almost tap into our drunk brain to allow ourselves to kind of skip over that kind of dead serious, like, what are we doing? What are we writing here? So it's like when we write now, it's like we tap into the drunk brain to kind of, yeah.
And it's kind of weird because we totally formalized it where it's like, yeah, I mean, like you have to shut off a little bit of your self editing, but you still have to wear a little bit because I mean, you have to use your time efficiently. Bart and I wrote basically the whole season. So like, and we were doing it while making the show. So we needed to just like, that was a huge amount of stuff we were putting out. So, I mean, like, I mean, like, I'm probably worse for this part. Like I will go down the stupidest routes but you have to get yourself back on train once in a while. And obviously we couldn't do that drunk.
yeah. But definitely, there's a certain amount of seriousness you have to shut off when you are making ridiculous, absurd adult comedy.
So has Drunk Brain ever caused any rewrites, sort of in the process of making everything?
Oh my God, yes. We are. So obviously our scripts are they're written longer than most scripts. Like where animation's usually a page a minute, we're double. Our final scripts for 11 minutes are 26 pages, but they start generally at 38. Like we just, our first draft of an episode is just, we're like, and then we come back with sober brain and go, okay, what the hell are we doing here? Like, unify this. What's this whole section about? Yeah.
Yes, and so that goes kind of back to what we were talking about earlier about like animating first versus writing first, like because we overgenerate so much stuff. Like a huge portion of our creativity comes down to the editing and cutting out the fat and just really getting to the essential bits.
I mean, guys, I got to ask, it's a silly question, but I mean, we're in a business where everyone comes to it as a fan first. And I mean, I've got to ask, like, what's the stuff that made you guys want to get into this business?
Definitely. We mentioned two of them, are especially Space Ghost. Like, do you know Space Ghost, Dave?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It's just way before internet was, messing with everything under the sun and culture. The idea of these guys finding an old maybe it's not stupid, but an old cartoon and completely repurposing it into this talk show. It was just like, when we discovered that, it was just like, you got Tom York being interviewed by a weird ghost man, and they're just basically completely ignoring him and repurposing like the villain as like the musician. It was just so amazing to kind of see what, like, up until this point we're watching, Simpsons and Family Guy and stuff, and to see like, oh my God, animation can be really creative, really out of the box and still be hilarious and entertaining. I would say Space Ghost is one of the biggest ones. We have lots, like a big part of it being the Adult Swim lineup for sure.
Definitely. And like comedy influences, I always think of like Tom Green. Like when I was in high school, the sort of like, and I think this is what also drew us to Adult Swim. Bart's talking about like the creativity and like different format you can do, but like just breaking all the rules. There's no like being completely irreverent to anything else that you see on television and just doing something entirely new. Lying down in the street for 4 hours to do interviews. Like, It was just brilliant, and it was like that level of absurdity has always really excited me. And then when Bart and I kind of get together and we can play in that space, I think we have slightly different but very similar spins on absurdity, and it just, I don't know, it was the perfect sort of hookup.
No, man, I think for me, I think the first time I saw Metalocalypse and I sort of appreciated the fact that a death metal band is basically their own economy in this sort of global world that they're living in. It just made me appreciate really the levels that the creativity can get to, especially in this kind of animation. But I mean, just to put a bow on this, I mean, obviously we're on the brink of your baby being seen by the world. Are you nervous? Are you happy? Are you hiding in the corner? Are you resisting drunk brain, or are you just trying to get drunk until it premieres and then just it's done?
Basically that last one, yes. But honestly, I think it's extremely cathartic. Like as Chris says, 3 years in a box. When we worked on YouTube for like a decade, we were used to finishing an episode of something every 2 weeks, putting it out there, seeing an audience reaction. And there's just such a buildup. All of our friends and family and fans, I think they think we're dead, somewhere.
Yep.
And it's just like to come back
Chris,
and be like,
Bart, man, oh my God.
They're gone.
Exactly,
They're gone.
Exactly. So to be able to come out and say, it's here, here's some episodes, like it feels really, really good.
It feels amazing. And I don't want to be cocky, but I've never been happier with anything that we've done than I am with this. I just know in my heart of heart it's the best thing we could have done for it, and everybody's gonna love it. I just know it.
Boys, you are representing Canton in a gloriously bent way, and I mean, I cannot wait for more people to see it. But guys, honestly, congrats on the work, man. Keep it up, and just again, thank you for the time today.
Oh, thank you.
It was really cool hanging out.
Absolutely. All right, talk to you later, guys. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.